Ilhan Omar has been a member of Congress since the year 2020. That's a whole 5 years in our federal government. And she believes that there's a Secretary of Egg.
The Secretary of Egg to the Secretary of Egg.
I had to check to see if this was AI. No, it's a completely true thing that she said.
The Secretary of Egg
Secretary
to the
Egg.
Secretary of Egg.
Like a egg. Like what does she believe this is? Is she talking about Stephen Miller, who does kind of look like an egg, quite frankly? Nice, shiny, round, bald head. She did talk about Stephen Miller, by the way. She called him a Nazi because he's Jewish. Great. Ilhan Omar compares Stephen Miller to Nazis because of the Somali crackdown. Oh, got it. Okay, here we go. A squad member, is that still a thing? I don't think so. Outlandishly accuses Stephen Miller, an observant Jew, of espousing white supremacist rhetoric akin to the Nazis, how they describe Jews in Germany. When I think about Stephen Miller and his white supremacist rhetoric, it reminds me of the ways that Nazis describe Jewish people in Germany. This is not the first time that we've heard this relation made, but it is powerfully stupid. Omar, first-generation immigrant from Somalia, who came here penniless because she needed basic needs like food and shelter, gasoline, electricity, now worth $30 million. She entered Congress, negative income. She was in debt when she entered Congress just 5 years ago. Now she's worth $30 million. It's completely magic. How does it happen? Well, there's a lot of fraud going on in the Somali parts of Minneapolis. Ilhan Omar, who claims that Stephen Miller is a Jewish Nazi, saying that, it's really not up to the Somalis. You can't blame them. They were just there to take advantage of the fraud. Obviously, it's America's fault for letting them do that.
7 people charged, all but 8 are of Somali descent. And that has added to the spotlight being put specifically on your community. Why do you think this fraud was allowed to get so widespread?
Well, I want to say, this also has an impact on Somalis because we are also taxpayers in Minnesota. We also could have benefited from the program and the money that was stolen. And so it's been really frustrating for people to not acknowledge the fact that we're also as Minnesotans, as taxpayers, really upset and angry about the fraud.
So this is, of course, totally and patently untrue. Somalis are a net negative to the tune of something around billions of dollars per year when it comes to inflows versus outflows of federal benefits and state benefits to their community versus what they actually produce when it comes to tax paying and when it comes to revenues. And so Ilhan Omar lying there, claiming to be the victim of the Somali crime. It really is, wildly indulgent. You got to give her credit for that. And the boldness of the strategy is really remarkable. This is the great lie of mass migration, says Stephen Miller. You are not just importing individuals, you are importing societies. No magic transformation occurs when failed states cross borders. At scale, migrants and their descendants recreate the conditions, terrors of their broken homelands. This is extremely correct and accurate, as we say on this program. Often, would you like the nation where the immigrant is from to become a U.S. state? That's, I think, the most important question. Do you want the nation of Afghanistan, Somalia, Haiti, Chad to become a state in America? Would you visit that state? Would that be a place you'd like to go? Because what you're bringing there is when you bring the people over, you're bringing the culture over. You're bringing the nation itself. And so if you don't like these nations, if these nations are collapsed societies, then you shouldn't be doing more of that. Like Somalia, as a good example, has a 60% coefficient for inbreeding, has extremely low numbers when it comes to IQ, when it comes to literacy. Something like 62% of the adult population is illiterate, can't read. And it's a population that is entirely subsistent on first cousin marriages, child brides, female genital mutilation. These are awful and terrible practices. You don't want them here. So why are you bringing the culture in here? That culture exists on piracy and fraud. And that is what, of course, you are getting now when you're seeing the mass fraud that is happening in Minneapolis, because you brought that culture here. Ilhan Omar served as the architect for this massive Somali fraud scheme in Minnesota, the biggest fraud scheme ever. Her response, racism. Send them home. Ilhan Omar says it's disgusting that Trump said Somali Americans are garbage, but said, of course, nothing when Joe Biden said Americans are garbage.
The only garbage I see floating out there is his supporters.
Okay, got it. See how two can play at that game. These are U.S. citizens he's denigrating. We have a duty as Americans to call out this hateful rhetoric, says Ilhan Omar. Yeah, they don't kill you because you're a Nazi. They call you a Nazi so they can kill you. And this is incitement. Every time Omar goes on TV, it increases public support to deport all Somalis, says Katie Miller. This is Stephen Miller's Life. Stephen Miller went flames on in an absolute scorched earth rampage against Somali Americans and why we need to be seriously considering, as President Trump says, remigration for populations that are incompatible with Western society, Western civilization, as we've just demonstrated. Stephen Miller saying, by the time this is all said and done, we are going to see that this is the single biggest fraud ever perpetrated on the American taxpayer in history, the Somali fraud out of Minneapolis. Here we go.
Yeah, so based on what we have found so far, we believe that the Somali fraud operation in Minnesota is the single greatest theft of taxpayer dollars through welfare fraud in American history. We believe that we have only scratched the very top of the surface of how deep this goes. And you're familiar with all the scams with pretending that children have autism who are not in fact autistic, with pretending to enroll people in food programs when in fact nobody was ever enrolled, and engaging in massive fraud, lying, and theft and grift on a scale we've never seen before in American history. The total bill, the total tab for this is going to be far beyond the numbers we've already seen reported. We believe the state government is fully complicit in this scheme, and we believe that what we are going to uncover is going to shock the American people. Look, based on the records that we already have, and this is a significant undercount, by the way, 75% of the Somali population in Minnesota is on welfare. But that's likely a significant undercount of just how much of a financial burden the Somali refugee population is imposing on this country.
So Governor Walz was warned by whistleblowers. He was told. You saw the dismissive attitude of the Attorney General. Congresswoman Omar is on defense, but apparently is associated with people, or at least people around her, clearly seem to be involved, not been proven yet, but very defensive at this time. Do you believe all of them, that this will apply to all of them, their lack of concern, the amount of money involved, any possible protection that they offered?
Yeah, I think you're going to see all of that, Sean. This scandal is going to rock the core of Minnesota politics and American politics. We are going to be able to show through whether it be willful blindness, whether it be deliberately turning the other way, or whether it be direct knowledge, we are going to show how Democrat politicians, Democrat bureaucracies, Democrat political systems, and the Somali refugee population ripped off the American people, stole countless taxpayer dollars, and engaged in scams that boggle the mind, scams that we can scarcely even conceive of or imagine in their brazenness. This truly underscores the extent to which the Democrat Party has used migration as a weapon against the American people to gain political power at the expense of American citizens, stealing their money, stealing their votes, stealing their sovereignty. This is going to be case in point for the argument that President Trump has made about why we must stop mass third-world migration into this country. It is a tool the Democrat Party has used to rob the American people blind.